Hey everybody, Jason with J Scott Property Management, and tonight what we're going to be talking about are the benefits of hiring a smaller property management company. So I'm going to try to keep this video somewhat brief, so we'll scan through here, and of course if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to answer those, whether it's email, in the comments, wherever you're seeing this. So before we get into some of those reasons, first let me point out that I have actually been on both sides of that equation. I've owned and operated a large management company in Kansas for close to 20 years, 15, 16, 1700 units, somewhere around there, 50, 60 employees at any given time. So for the town that we're in is a very large operation, and it did very well. It's still open today. And then I also, of course, now have, when we moved up here to the greater Phoenix metro area, the experience of owning a smaller boutique style family owned property management company. And that's by design for a lot of different reasons. Some of those we'll get into tonight. But more than anything, just kind of wanted you to be aware that I have seen it from both sides. And I do think there's definitely there's pros and cons to both. But for me, at least from the ownership perspective and the management perspective, there's some very specific reasons why I like the smaller management boutique type companies. So the first one, more than anything, really boils down to the relationship. So I would say probably about the 400 unit mark or so back in Kansas, we really had to start dialing in. Well, you always have to dial in your processes. Processes are the key to property management, but it took on a different life at probably about 400 units. And everything really had to start becoming a number because it got to be too big to be able to be involved and understand what was going on with everything and, have an awareness of everything. So more employees started coming on board. You had to systemize things more. You had to, pass on those responsibilities. You had to build in red flags. And what I found and what I didn't like was, as time went on, I found myself knowing less and less of my clients. And the clients I did know, I had less of a relationship with. I wasn't talking to them as much, because everything was systemized. And, the relationship side, for better or worse, and I definitely know, looking back, I could have done different things and been better. But that was one of the things that I regretted about that, was I lost the relationship side of things. And really, I think it boils down to kind of that personalized service, that connection, that relationship, understanding what the client needs. Because each client, even though they own rental property and there's some basic things you need out of it, there's different situations, and understanding where they're coming from, why they have their rental property, how they got there, what they need out of it, what they're looking for. Those are all very important. And so for me, I didn't like losing that. And so I think, for first and foremost, that's a very good number one reason for me why a smaller property management firm may be a good fit for you if that's what you're looking for. Next, I would say the flexibility. With the smaller property management company, I have found that I am able to be a little more flexible with the way that we kind of do things. I can build in some flexibilities to where with a larger management company that wasn't necessarily possible. And some examples, or an example of this would be, let's say, because right now we're managing all single family homes. Let's say the screening criteria. The screening criteria is just a list of all the things that an applicant has to meet in order to be approved for the home. Well, with the larger management company, that's going to be a standard screening criteria, and that's it. That's going to be a blanket criteria for all the properties we bring in, because when you're a larger management company, you have your machine, you're inputting the client, you're running them through your process, and if all works the way it's supposed to, you get a specific result. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But that does keep you from being able to customize to the client's needs. So screening criteria is a great place. So what we do here, just as an example, is if a client wants to move the screening criteria a little bit this way, they want to add this, they want to bump up their credit score, they don't care as much about this thing, we customize our screening criteria for them and their properties. And then that is the criteria we use for renting their home across the board. That's not something I would have ever done as a larger management company, because things can get away from you really quick. So great example, flexibility. Those are some of the things that we can do to be a little more, I don't want to say, we still have our machine here. I don't want to get that. I mean, you still have to you screen applications in a certain way. You still want to complete your lease agreements in a certain way. But there's a little more of a human element to it, I guess. When you start getting to a certain point, when you start losing that touch, like I said, 400 units plus, things become a lot more like you're a number. And you just can't be flexible, not near as much as you can when you're a smaller company. So that's another big reason I think that smaller management company may have an advantage over a larger management company, if that's what you're looking for, that is. I would say the last big one that I hear a lot of is that I hear this as a criticism of property management companies in general, and it'll be the property owner that manages their own home, and they'll say, well, they're never going to treat my property like I will. They'll never care for it as much as I do. And there's some truth to that. As a property management company owner, I don't own your property. I don't have that connection to it. There's no emotional attachment to it. I don't have the history to it. But I would also counter and say, hey, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Because I have seen a number of people who own property management, they can't let go, and they treat it like it is their own home. And when you have that emotional attachment, and when you are vested like that, a lot of times you lose sight of the fact that this is a rental property, this is an investment, and tenants are never going to treat your home the way that you're going to treat it. And if you get stuck in that can really make the property investment experience very unpleasant, because it just, if you've been in a business, it's just a matter of time. You can screen the best screening practices in place. You can have inspections. You can have all reference checks. You can do all kinds of things. But at some point, you're going to run into a tenant that is going to do things in such a way that you don't like. They're going to, maybe not pay rent the way that you like them to. Maybe they're not going to report maintenance. Maybe they're going to damage stuff. Maybe they're going to sneak dogs in. It's just a matter of time. And if you have that attachment so forth that it bothers you because they're not doing things the way you think they should be doing them, or that they're not treating a property the way that you would treat it, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for you. So, I think that that's a fair criticism, but I will say that as a smaller company, much like the relationship component with my clients, I am much more in tune with the properties that I manage than another management company owner that maybe manages 2,000 or 3,000. Or I am much more in tune with the properties I manage today than I ever was with the properties I managed when we got large back in Kansas. And again, it's just because I'm managing employees, I'm managing liabilities, I'm managing lawsuits, I'm managing the business itself. I'm not involved with the property management functions the way that I am now and the way that I plan to continue to be. So like I said, there's a very valid point if you feel like that a management company is not going to do that. But I do think as a smaller management company, it gets a lot closer to that, and I think in a good way too, because I think some property owners they do need that degree of separation. I love property management as an investment. I think if you can do it, you should do it, but not everybody is really designed to be some people just don't have the skin for it, and a property manager is a great way to kind of put that buffer in there, so that you can enjoy the benefits of that without being driven crazy by all the stuff that happens in this industry. So, those are the top three, I would say, benefits of a smaller management company over a larger management company. Again, there's lots of different arguments, pros and cons, lots of valid points. If you're a smaller management company or a larger management company and you want to add to this, throw it down in the comments. Love to hear what you have to say. Again, I could be here all night talking about, all of them, but those are the big ones. And it really, like I said, just kind of boils back down to the relationship component of it. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions or anything, of course, feel free to reach out. Jason J. Scott, property management, email, call, text, whatever works best for you. Hope this helps. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.